Good day, good day, good day. Welcome back to another episode of the Black Mind Garden. And I am excited. I'm excited because we're going to have a really good conversation today with my guest. And, we're going to be talking about how our story can be our superpower. And we're having this conversation with a sister who I was actually recently on her podcast, and I was so excited to be able to have. We had an amazing conversation, and we're going to talk about that in just a moment. But before that, I want to talk about who this person is. So this is Monica Wisdom. She is the owner of Monica Wisdom Strategies. She's a strategist, podcast producer, and writer, and she helps women tap into their inner genius, amplifying their voices and monetizing their knowledge. And she does this through private strategy sessions, podcasting, and master classes. And so she is an amazing, amazing woman. Her podcast, actually, Black Women Amplified, is the name of her podcast. So you actually will hear this podcast during the summer sessions as we wrap up the season. I'm going to be debuting some of the podcasts that I guested on, some of my favorites. And Monica Wisdom's podcast was one of them. So I want to welcome you, Monica. Thank you so much for being here. How are you today?
I am wonderful. I am so excited to be here. I couldn't wait to have this conversation. I was like a little kid for Christmas. I'm like, I can't wait to talk to her again. We had
Yeah,
so much fun the last time.
we did, didn't we? One of the things I love about, having a podcast that was sort of an unexpected benefit was really getting to meet amazing people and have amazing conversations with people like you. So I just thank you for being here.
Oh, my pleasure.
Yeah.
My
Well,
pleasure.
I always like to start by having the audience get to know our guests a little bit. So if you would share just a little bit about you, a little bit about your story and how you came to have, your be where you are and have the business that you have.
The beauty of it is it started out of, like many people's stories, trying to change my own. I came
Yeah.
out of a family that was a great family. I have a great
Mhm.
extended family, but
Mhm.
behind closed doors, a lot of things went on that weren't
Yeah.
great. So as I grew and evolved, I had to go on a journey of self discovery so that I could release my trauma,
Mhm.
discover who I am, and
Mhm.
walk in my purpose.
Yeah.
And during that, I took a lot of adventures through the beauty industry, through the
Yeah.
music industry, through the publishing industry, working for some top companies like Sebastian International,
Mhm.
Schwarzkopf Hair Color, as
Mhm.
well as having a salon behind the chair business for 35 years.
Mhm.
And it was in October of last year when I decided I was going to blow up my whole life. I was going to blow up my whole life because I realized even though I'm great at what I do, I'm
Mhm.
excellent at what I do,
Mhm.
I was not happy.
Mm.
So I said
Mhm.
it's time for me to find my happy and do what I feel like my calling was, which was to help women tell their stories. So my
Yeah.
first iteration of that, well, not the first time because I've done it throughout my life. I've interviewed people when I worked for a magazine. I've interviewed
Mhm.
people like Kirk Franklin and Vanetta
Mm.
Flowers, the Olympian,
Mm.
and Evander Holyfield and Isaac Bruce and Eric Roberson. So I've interviewed people throughout my life. And I've
Yeah.
worked in the beauty industry freelance. I've worked with the Isley Brothers and Loretta
Mm.
Devine and Letha Rashan.
Ooh,
So I've
Loretta
had
Devine.
and then incredible women like you who are just forging their own paths and
Mm.
building their lives and building their businesses. And I've helped people start their businesses. I've
Mhm.
consulted with people like Carol's daughter and
Yeah.
other people who have trying to make transitions and make money and be successful. But my passion is allowing people to see themselves and to see their greatness.
Yeah.
So I first had to do it in myself, which was a
Yeah.
journey of self discovery. So I help people understand that a journey of self discovery is just simply about finding out more about you.
Yeah. I love
So
that.
my first iteration is Black Women Amplified, the podcast.
I love it. I have to say, there's so many things, even in just that. I find that when people are sharing their stories, they don't even realize how much wisdom they're dropping,
Mm,
right? And one of the first things that you said is, while you have a wonderful family,
mhm.
that things went on behind closed doors that weren't so wonderful.
Yes.
And I think that, you know, a lot of times that is a condition
Mm,
of our culture. Many cultures, and especially our culture, is that there's a saying, what goes on behind closed doors stays behind closed doors, right?
keep
That's at least
home and home is what my
home
mama
is
said.
exactly. So it's like a mantra inside of the community that I think of our generation that we grew up with,
Hmm.
and it has us, go out into the world with the mask on,
Hmm.
doing the things that we feel like we're supposed to be doing,
Hmm.
and leading us into this space of sometimes great success, but there's sort of like an inner missing,
Hmm.
right? And I love the way you language that, because I think that sometimes often we feel we need to hide those stories. We
Right.
feel like we need to hide that past,
Right.
and because somehow that past is going to be to our detriment. And sometimes it's like acknowledging the past. I know from my own experience, and also from the women that I've coached in the past, is like that going back there will break us. I can't face that because it'll break me, and I'm already just surviving, kind of thing.
Hmm.
So that was the first thing you said. I just thought, oh, that's beautiful. And then I loved your journey of going through iterations of your career. And that I find we have in common, because, as you
Hmm.
know, I'm in I would call it my third, maybe third or fourth career, right? You know,
Right.
from physician to coach to consultant to trainer to to a lot of different things, right?
Right.
And to be on that journey of self-discovery. And I think, normalizing the journey, because I
Hmm.
think sometimes people think, oh, well, if I'm changing careers, that means that maybe somehow I failed, or somehow that wasn't the right thing to do. And
Hmm.
I think that and this is again coming back to what the topic is, every part of our journey matters. It's
Yes.
all leading towards where who we're showing up at any given moment. Because I don't want to say the destination, because really, is there a destination? I mean, the final destination is the final destination.
Well,
But
the final destination is back to the dust. Okay.
exactly, that's what I said.
So when people there's no end game in life,
I love it. That's exactly what I was alluding to.
there's just life. And
There's
I
life.
always talk about, I don't like the term purpose because it's
Mm,
something people are always searching for.
right.
We are born with a purpose, and people
Right.
call it your swag or your juice or your how you do the things that you do is the
Yeah.
reason that you were born. It's not what you do because we focus on so much of doing. Our
Yes.
purpose is our way of being.
Mm-hmm.
And so, for instance, we could sing the same song.
Mm-hmm.
The words are the same, the music is the same, but our way of being and what we bring to it is completely different. That's
Mm-hmm.
our purpose. It's that
Mm-hmm.
simple. I think everybody read the book Purpose Driven Life.
Mm.
And so everybody went on this constant search for what your purpose is. Your
Right.
purpose is who you are. What you're seeking is your calling. And
Yes.
the road
Ooh.
that you're walking is your destiny.
Ooh.
And your destiny is your journey. All the twists and turns and
Yeah.
trials and challenges and successes. That's your
Oh,
destiny.
it's
And if
beautiful.
we don't re imagine this journey, we're going to continue to have anxiety and depression
Mhm, mhm.
because we think it's supposed to be what society told us what it is.
Yes.
But at the end of the day, we're all just Peter Pan going on our next adventure.
Ooh!
That's
Girl,
it.
the story, the visual of that story,
Hmm.
distinguishing the calling and the path of the destiny. I just that's so beautiful, and I love the mic drop with the Peter Pan here. Yes,
I
we are
mean,
Peter Pan going
we
on
go
this
out of that
journey.
window, we have our friends with us, and we just go on
Yes,
an adventure. And if we
yes.
look at life like that, We
Yes.
realize that there is the end game is exhaustion because you've lived your life.
Yeah.
When you go in
Yeah.
that box, you're tired because
That's
you
right.
lived a life.
That's right.
And it's all about acceptance.
Mm-hmm.
And the reason I think people don't tell their stories, and I know I speak for myself, it was a
Hmm.
lot of shame around it.
Yeah.
I'm Generation X, so we didn't talk about abuse and all the things that
Yes.
went on inside of the house
Mm-hmm.
because one in that generation it was about safety.
Yes,
Let's
absolutely.
just say that we're the first generation outside of Jim Crow. So our parents were raised in Jim Crow and
Mm-hmm.
we had to be safe. So that was their way
Yeah,
of keeping us safe.
absolutely.
And we didn't have tools to deal with our traumas and situations. Our parents did not know how to parent. They just
Right.
knew how to provide and keep us safe.
To
So
keep it safe. Yep.
all praises to them because they walked us to this part, right?
Mm-hmm.
So
Mm-hmm.
we honor them in the space that they're in and realize that they didn't know any better,
Mm-hmm.
but we know better.
Yeah.
We're learning it just now.
Absolutely. I think there's something to be said for that because we as the X gen are sort of the bridge
Hmm.
between the boomer generation who, they came straight out of Jim Crow. And it's interesting because it wasn't until I was talking to my father maybe like a few weeks ago, and I was having a moment of, this work in the anti-oppression space is
Hmm.
hard work. And when sometimes the gains are not seen, like are very tiny, and sometimes you don't see them over time, and you
Hmm.
see a lot of setbacks. And if we're not careful, the vision can focus on the setbacks and not the forward
Right.
movement. So I was
Right.
talking to my dad, and he said to me straight up, "Yeah, I was raised in the Jim Crow era," and I just thought, wow, you know what? I didn't realize. I mean, it's not that far long ago, but then to hear my father say it is like, oh, that wasn't that long ago at all.
Mm-mm.
So when you said that, it just brought that back for me. Like, we
I
really
mean,
are the
think about
bridge.
how old your father is and how old you are. How long ago was that?
Right.
From your age to when he was 50 something,
20,
49,
yeah, like 20, 25 years maybe.
25 years.
Right.
That's
That's
not a long time.
nothing. That's nothing. Right. That's not a long time at all.
Yeah.
And so, you know, to your point, we are this bridge between a generation who was raised in Jim Crow and then this new sort of millennial generation. New, they're not new. They're getting up there now. They got children. let,
They're
let me
40
not
now.
let me not get dragged by the millennials here. But, the millennial and even the older millennials have a similar experience to the X generation, right?
Mhm,
They're that bridge. But we're a bridge to a new type of parenting. We are discovering ourselves. We are healing our traumas. We are telling our stories, the things that, like you said, behind closed doors we weren't allowed to do.
mhm,
So yeah, that's really deep, and it's very important for us as X Gen and older millennials to understand. Because I'm right center of the road X Gen, by the way. I claim it. I claim I'm not a close to the millennial. I'm an X generation.
I am, listen, X.
That's right.
What I love being Generation X. And it's that's one reason I love social media because I get to see other Generation Xers because we
Yes,
don't talk to each other.
yes, we
Like,
yes.
we were in our family in our bubbles, and it's like, oh, you all went through the same thing we did.
Yes, yes, yes. Like we claim it, claim it,
I
claim it.
love,
X Men.
yes, I love it when they do. Was it Wakanda Forever? Like Gen X.
Gen X, that's right. That's right. So yeah, but it's like the Z Gen and we're paving the way for a new kind of
Yeah.
interaction with
Mhm.
each other. Like
Yes.
sometimes we talk about parent to child or generation to generation, but it's really with each other. Like
Mhm.
how I am with
And
you,
the conversation with ourselves.
and the conversations with ourselves,
Mhm.
and the level of intimacy that we can have with each other
Mhm.
as colleagues, as women, as women to man. So it's really great what you're saying here.
And it's beautiful, even in the conversation with ourselves, which I think why self discovery is so important.
Hmm.
Because before we have relationship with other people, we need to know who we are.
Absolutely.
And it's a situation, I know it's generational. We didn't have the opportunity to discover ourselves. We just
Mm,
had to go to work. Our
right.
parents put the key in the door.
Mhm.
We had to open it and
Mhm.
forge a whole new path. And
Yes.
that's a lot of responsibility to carry, not on, and we knew it
Mhm.
wasn't just about us.
Mhm.
It was about our family, it was
Mhm.
about generation, it was about the ancestors. Like
Yeah.
all of that was put on our shoulders, and we're tired.
Mhm. Mhm.
But we now have the opportunity and the tools and the places we can just sit down, be still. Like the Bible says, be still and know God. We
Mhm.
can also be still and know ourselves,
Yes.
because we
Yes.
get to sit down and say, what do I really like? What do I want to be in life? Who is the woman that I want to be in this world?
Yeah.
And oftentimes, as we're seeing, people are walking away from corporate jobs. People are
Mhm.
walking away from bad relationships.
Mhm.
People are walking into themselves in
Mhm.
a whole new way. It's like, oh, I don't even like pizza. Why do I keep eating it? Just simple things like
Right.
that, right? Like,
Yeah.
what? Oh, this is a family tradition that has carried on. I
Right.
don't want to do that anymore.
Right.
We talk so much about legacy building. We need to talk about personality building. We
Mhm.
need to talk about me building,
Mhm.
and stop
Mhm.
always making it about, oh my God, for generations. Let them do what they need to do,
Mhm.
because their
Mhm.
world is going to be totally different. If
Yeah.
you're 8, your world is totally different than me as a 54-year-old woman.
That's right.
So
That's
I need to give you space to build for yourself. But right now, I can't do that if I don't know who I am. Because
and
what I'm building is the idea that somebody else gave me.
yes.
And I often say that we are living our parents' dreams. And now
Mhm.
it's time for us to live our own dream. But first we have to figure out what that is.
What
And that's
those are.
self-discovery.
Yeah. So I love what you're saying, and so I it poses the question, how does like knowing our story and even telling our story lead us back to us? Like how does it lead us back to who we are?
Because our story gives us gives us clues.
Mhm.
I always have so much in my brain, my mouth sometimes.
Well, I know
Trying to
I
get so much
know.
out. So our story gives us clues of why we do the things that we do.
Mhm.
So when we are triggered by something,
Mhm.
okay,
Mhm.
that gives us a clue of where to look.
Yeah.
So for instance, let's use road rage. Why are
Mhm.
you mad at the other driver?
Mhm.
Ask yourself that before
Right.
you ever respond. Well, why am I mad about this?
Mhm.
What am I really mad about? Where
Yeah.
was where have I been mad about that before?
Mhm.
When was the first time I was mad about that? That's in your story.
Yeah.
Because what you feel is you don't feel acknowledged, you feel
Mhm.
disrespected, you don't
Mhm.
feel seen.
Mhm.
Where did you feel like that the first time?
That's right.
It's inside your story. So
That's
when
right.
you look at your story, your trigger connects to something in the past. It's not
Mhm.
random, it's not a coincidence.
Mhm.
You're triggered because it's something that's deep inside of you.
Yeah.
And so I had to discover it because I was the pop off queen. Somebody said something to me, baby. Ooh, I was like a ninja. I can assassinate you with my mouth, my tongue,
Right.
my words.
Right.
And I had to figure out where that came from. And it came from the
Mm.
anger and the rage and the hurt inside of me, and the
Mm.
abuse that I had to cover up because I had to keep home at home,
Right.
and all the shame and the guilt. So when I started working on that,
Mhm.
if you made me mad, okay, you mad? I'm good.
Right.
You know? Now, if
Right.
I have a situation I need to set a boundary, I
Yes.
do it with grace and I do it with love
Mhm.
now. But that's
Mhm.
that's not how I was 10 years ago. That's not how I was 20 years ago.
Mhm.
But I had to decide, what type of woman do I want to be?
Yeah.
That was the first decision. Not what I want to do in life, but who I want to be in life.
Mhm.
And
Yeah.
all of those clues come inside of our own story. It's not in a book, it's not in a YouTube video, it's
Why don't you stop?
not a workshop. It's not, these things are tools.
Right.
But at the end of the day, they are tools to help you discover yourself. They are not
Mhm.
the answer. We are the answer we've been looking for.
Yeah.
Hmm.
It also brings to mind to me when you say that there our story are clues. I really love that. The other thing that brings to mind is that our story are also clues for where we inherited
Yes.
conversations that are not ours. Or like you said earlier, traditions
Yeah.
that we inherited. And I
Hmm.
think there's something to be said about that because if you're on the journey of self-discovery and you're like, why am I doing what I'm doing? Not just when you're activated, but just in general.
Yes.
Like, why do I, why and I'm gonna bring this up and this may activate some people, but why am I going to church?
Yes.
Right. And it may be that you discover that you go to church because you love the community you love, or why am I going to this church?
Right.
Right? And for me, like that was a huge thing, like really discovering my spiritual bond, my spirit, my own personal relationship with
Hmm.
higher power, rather than the relationship that had been passed down to me
Hmm.
about God and higher power, right?
Hmm.
So that I had to go on an entire journey of exploring different spiritual communities, religions, denominations, like all of these things
Hmm.
to discover what do I believe and what does my personal relationship with God look like so that I can find the spiritual community that I
Yes.
could commune with that shared those values. And then if I have that spiritual foundation, then I can allow for a spiritual foundation in my son and talk about it without doing the same thing of like, this is what you're going to believe, right?
Hmm.
Now, when I have a conversation with my son and he says, well, do you believe? He actually asked me the question the other day, Mommy, are we Christian?
Hmm.
And I said to him, well, we don't go to a Christian church. And that doesn't mean, I said, do you want to be Christian? He said, well, I don't know. I said, well, that's something that we could explore,
Hmm.
right? We could explore. There are a lot of different religions. There are a lot of different denominations of a religion. There are a lot of different like spiritual communities. I myself am not in the Christian community,
Hmm.
and the community I am incorporates and actually recognizes Christianity as one of the major teachings for spirituality.
Hmm.
And so that's how I explained it to him. I said, and what you want to explore, we can explore,
Hmm.
so that you find the system that or the spiritual um, grounding that works for you.
And the
And
key in what you said was exploring,
yeah.
right? So you have to, like you said, it's tradition.
Hmm.
And we get in life, we get stuck on something because
Yeah.
I've always done this. This is what I'm always going to do. This is who I'm always going to be.
Right.
This is, I
Hmm.
did.
Hmm.
Okay. Now, what else are you going to do? Right. So when you're exploring, when you're going to church, what do you need? You have to
Yeah.
tune into yourself to decide what you actually
Yeah.
need.
Hmm.
If you're going because of tradition, that's great. Honor the traditions of your family,
Hmm.
but also ask yourself, what do I need? And
Yeah.
in your exploration of that, you might need to learn meditation.
Hmm.
So you might not know where to go, but you might go to a Buddhist temple
Right.
and say, can I learn meditation?
Yeah.
It might not. And meditation is talked about in the Bible.
Yeah.
So being still is taught about in the Bible, disconnecting is taught in the Bible. So if you're a Christian, you also have to explore the modalities that are actually in the Bible. I remember when I was planning on leaving the Christian church because I'm a Christian and my best friend is Muslim.
Hmm.
So she would invite me to the mosque. I loved it.
Yeah.
And so uh, as God would have it, just no
Right.
coincidences, she was entertaining one of their missionaries, which is somebody goes around. I don't know exactly what he does. And she told me, don't talk to him. But me being me, I pulled a chair up and said, can I ask you some questions?
Hmm.
Because, he's a student, he's a scholar of Islam.
Hmm.
So I asked him, we talked for like an hour and a half.
Hmm.
And he told me about a Jesus I did not know.
Mm.
Because a part of their belief is to understand other beliefs.
Yeah.
they can have intelligent conversations. We're taught to
Mm.
stay away from other beliefs as
That's
Christians.
right.
So
Mhm.
he told me so much about Jesus. I got into my Bible and I was like, oh my God, it's here.
Mhm.
But I was never taught it because I believed what my pastor said. But
Right.
once I got into the Bible and was like, oh, okay, so Jesus turned water into wine. That's about transformation.
Mhm.
Baptism is about reinventing yourself,
Mhm.
becoming a new person.
Mhm.
So I learned to love all beliefs and have
Mhm.
respect for them, as opposed to locking people out. So it opened up my
Right.
world within what I believe. So that was about exploring, like you said.
And the beauty of exploration is that exploration allows you to evolve,
Yes.
and that means that wherever you are, whether and this goes for spirituality, but it also goes for your profession, your career. You talked about how you evolved through different professions and different careers, how I've evolved through different
Mhm.
professions and different careers. When we learn to explore, like we explore our story, and then we can see, okay, these are the things that I've inherited. Do they work for me? Because some things that you inherit, I mean, let's just be clear, some of the things that we inherit do work for us.
Mhm.
So it's not to say throw the baby out with the bathwater, but when you explore your story and you explore and you investigate and you be curious about, man, like what are the things that I inherited that no longer work for me, that I want to like evolve from? What are the
Mhm.
things that I inherited that, oh, I really like? I want to keep some element of this. Then
Mhm.
we have choice in the matter. Like that increases our choice, which increases the opportunity and the pathways that we see out there to do the things that we want and to make the impacts that we want, you know?
And choice is freedom.
It really is.
We stagnate. We talk about oppression of other people,
Hmm.
but that oppression is so conditioned in us that we begin to oppress ourselves.
Yeah.
It's always been this way. I've always made my mac and cheese like this. This is how my grandmother made it. I want to pass it down. That's a beautiful tradition.
Yeah.
Or maybe you want to try a new recipe.
Yeah.
This is the type of man I'm used to.
Mm.
This is the type of man that my grandfather was. This type of man that my cousin married. This is the type of man that's considered a good man in society.
Mm.
But is he the type of man that I need?
Mhm.
And how do you know what you need? You've never asked yourself.
Right.
We we perceive what we need by the ideas of others, but
Woo.
we've never
Hey.
asked ourselves, what do we need?
Yes.
And that's what I love about the millennials because they ask themselves a little too much for me. But I'm learning so much about that thought process of like, oh, I've always done this. I've done this job for 35 years.
Mhm.
Am I happy?
Mhm.
Oh, I'm not happy.
Mhm.
I have the power to change that.
Mhm.
So it's time to implement everything I've learned and make that change. And I
Right.
have the power to, nobody's going to do it for me. The pastor's not going to do it for me.
That's right.
Oprah's not going to do it for me. All of the
Right, right.
all
Gail
of the
King.
outsideness of life is not going to do it for me. It's an internal conversation.
Yeah.
And you, like you said, I equate it with a computer. When you get a computer, you open it up and it is just technology.
Mhm.
And until you put in a program, does it
Mhm.
come alive?
Mhm.
So we have to examine the programs that were put in us
Yes.
by our, just for the fact of the way that we were born, our
Yep.
complexion,
Yep.
our environment, our
Mhm.
family, our
Mhm.
extended family, society, all of those
Mhm.
contributing factors,
Mhm.
and say, okay, those are programs that are put inside of me. Are they working?
Right. Do they
And if
need an
they're not
upgrade?
working, delete, delete, delete,
Yep.
delete.
Is it, yes, like delete the program. Do we need to delete the programming? Do we need to upgrade the software
Yeah.
to make it better? Because one of the things about the previous generation, the boomer generation, that I do appreciate
Hmm.
is they're heavily rooted in values,
Yes.
right? And so what I recognize and appreciate coming from my mom and my dad's generation is this rooting in values, this heavy rooting in values, and
Hmm.
particularly family values. but like just values in general and and thinking about, well, what's important. And then there is a like a work ethic, like a level of integrity
Mm-hmm.
in that respect. There are definitely a lot of out integrities, but there's a whole nother podcast,
Right.
a whole nother three-four podcast. But we gonna say this level of integrity with work and creating and following through, that
Mm-hmm.
actually is very valuable. So like that programming, it 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 works to an extent, but definitely needs upgrading, right?
Mm-hmm.
At least in
Because
me, like
loyalty is a great thing,
it is,
but here's the upgrade: not loyal to your company,
right?
loyal to yourself.
And not loyal to the point of harm.
Oh, not harm, but just loyal to, I'm putting myself in the equation.
Right,
We
exactly.
as
This, no,
women
no, what I'm
often
saying is
don't
like,
put ourselves in the equation. We are loyal to
yeah,
all the external things. We're loyal
yeah,
to our obligations. We're
yes,
loyal to our fears.
yes,
Let's take all that energy and be loyal to ourselves and start off with the question, am I happy and is this working for me?
right.
That's
And
a
that's
simple
exactly what
start.
I'm saying. That's exactly what I'm saying. It's like, sometimes we're loyal to the fault. We're
Yes.
loyal. Sometimes we are loyal to the point of harming ourselves.
Mhm.
And exactly what you're saying is when we put ourselves in the in the
An equation.
equation,
Mhm.
then we can see, oh, you know what? This loyalty is harming me.
Mhm.
This loyalty in this relationship is
Mhm.
harming me. This
And
loyalty in this job is harming me. This
mhm.
loyalty in this behavior, to this behavior or belief, is harming me, right? This loyalty to this tradition is harming me. When we put ourselves in the equation, we can see that and then, like, okay, do we need to delete that programming, like you said?
Mhm.
Do we need to upgrade the software and evolve and keep the elements we want to keep, but have like those new elements to make it better?
And the thing is that we spend, and I'm so glad people are having conversations about mental wellness now,
Mm-hmm.
because we spend so much time and energy and effort making the outside look pretty and
Girl.
making it palatable to everybody else. We
Mm-hmm.
spend a lot of time making a lot of people making our physical self look great,
Mm-hmm.
but
Mm-hmm.
we don't spend any time making our emotional self look great,
Mm-hmm.
our mental self look great. And I'm not talking about mental illness.
Yeah.
I'm talking about how we respond to life, how
Yeah.
we see life, our perspective.
Mm-hmm.
That's the aspect that I'm talking about.
Yeah.
It's like there's a song that Prince used to sing. I don't know who wrote it, but if God was one of us,
Oh, yes.
and there was an artist. This is why I love art, but there was an artist here who drew this painting of this man who looked like a homeless person,
Mm,
tattered clothes. But when you looked at the bottom of the clothes, there were angels' wings hanging out of the bottom,
mm,
right? We
mhm.
are so hooked on
Yeah.
consumerism and capitalism that we pay more attention to how people articulate their words and
Mhm.
how they dress than, like Dr. King says, the content of the character.
Right. Right.
So if the content of the character of a person is not good enough for you, are you looking at the content of your character?
Right.
Because what
Right.
you find important in the world is a clue about your story,
Yeah.
about what you find important in yourself. Because I find with the women that I've worked with over the years,
Mhm.
all this looks great,
Yeah.
brand new shiny cars, trips around the
Mhm.
world, selfies, all the things. But when they get home and the door closes, like I talked about before,
Yeah.
they look in the mirror, they don't see how beautiful they are.
Right.
They don't feel worthy. They feel overwhelmed and tired.
Mhm.
So there's a duality that we have as women, especially as Black women, because we're taking on so many other people's responsibilities
Mhm.
that we don't take on ourselves as a responsibility.
Mhm.
So we end up crying ourselves to sleep, having a bottle of wine to just to clear our heads,
Mhm.
binging on television shows, all the
Mhm.
things
Mhm.
to numb the fact that we're not happy.
Right.
and we're not satisfied and we don't feel worthy.
Right.
So let's go into that instead of keep trying to dress up life. Because
Absolutely.
here's the thing, once you go there, everything else falls in place.
It really
When
does.
the house is cracked, the
Yeah.
rest of the house is going to fall. Fix the foundation. Focus
Hmm.
on the foundation. Love the foundation.
Yeah.
You know.
And that leads me to sort of this sort of a final sort of thought, a point, I should say, that has brought to mind is that, so we talked about like how our story leads us to clues about the our wounds,
Hmm.
and then also leads us to clues about what we've inherited. But what I have read and have found to be um, effective is that I think that when we get to that point of healing, a certain point of healing, that telling our stories can be very
Oh,
therapeutic,
yes.
right? So there's the recognizing and exploring and the investigating and the curiosity, and then there's the healing. And then at a certain point in our healing, telling our stories then becomes even more therapeutic. I think there's multiple layers to it. Part of it is it moves the energy through our body and out of our
Yes.
body and into the atmosphere where we're releasing it. But also there's a healing component to being able to inspire others with what we've experienced, right? So in telling others our story, oftentimes we are, whether consciously or unconsciously, contributing to another's healing.
Hmm.
And that is, I don't have the words in my mind right now to describe what that is, but it really can be a therapeutic process for the person telling a story, but empowering and
Well, it
inspiring.
invites empathy into people's lives because
Yeah.
when you tell, that's where we see our sameness.
Mm-hmm.
That's when we see where we are connected.
Mm-hmm.
Because when you tell, I call it a key. When you tell your story,
Mm-hmm.
it opens up a floodgate of all the things, and
Mm-hmm.
it releases the guilt and the shame.
Mm-hmm. Ah.
You know, I love, I always use, I like to use the example of Barack Obama when he ran for president. He wrote a book about his whole life,
Mm-hmm.
everything.
Mm-hmm.
So now nobody can get him because nobody
Mm-hmm.
can find anything. He already put it out there.
Mm-hmm.
So the part about putting it out there, not only does it create connection, but it becomes a sense of peace,
Mm-hmm.
and it helps build
Mm-hmm.
confidence because not only do you get to examine your journey
Mm-hmm.
and your successes, but
Mm-hmm.
you get to see how strong you are. You
Yes,
get to see your
that's it.
collection of strength and resilience and power
Mhm.
because you say to yourself, we get stuck in, oh my God, I don't know if I can do this. Da, 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 da. Then if you look back at your story about your life, you say, I've done this 10 times before.
Mhm.
You can do
Mhm.
it this time. Like we talk about changing careers.
Yep.
I did this before. I can do it again.
Yep.
And there's a process in it. It's not a
Mhm.
simple, oh, I'm just going to blam everything. There's a process in how you tell your story because
Yep.
it doesn't always have to be a traumatic incident.
Mhm.
It can be something somebody said to you that unlocked something inside of you. But when you tell your story, and I'll say this as we conclude, when you tell your story, you are sharing your power with the world.
Mhm.
And that's why your story is your superpower. Because
Mm.
your power is your story. It's not your what you have accumulated or what you have accomplished specifically, but it's the sum total of who you are, the
Yeah.
cracks and the shiny parts.
Yeah.
We are all flawed diamonds. And that's what I say about that. We are all flawed diamonds. We have many facets. We're brilliant and we have flaws all at the
Mm.
same time. And
Yeah.
that's why our story, when we share it, we share our power. And that's
Mhm.
why it's our superpower.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that. It's a perfect mic drop. Yeah. This is a beautiful, beautiful conversation. I was like, man, I can't believe how the time flies,
I know.
I can't believe how the time flies. And but you know what, it was just a really wonderful conversation to underline. And you know, me and you, we speak the same language. You just speaking my language all day long. I'm like, this is why we need to have these conversations.
Yes.
So I appreciate you bringing your wisdom, and I want to make sure that those who are listening have an opportunity, if they'd like to, be able to connect with you. So if you would let the listeners know if they want to work with you, or if
Mhm.
organizations want to hire you to come speak, how do they find you? How do they connect with you?
Well, you can go to my website, monicawisdomhq.com, and you get a understanding of who I am and what I offer. If you want to hear more from me, you can go to Black Women Amplified podcast and hear the amazing stories of the women that I interview, including you, and have great conversations with. And also, if you want to know more about working with me, sign into my tribe. You can go to monicawisdomhq.com/me time. And I
Mm,
have a beautiful affirmations journal for you to download with
very good.
pictures and words that look like us,
Mhm.
beautiful Black women, and just put them around your house and repeat them. And you'll start to feel the words that you say, because I definitely believe in mantras. But I definitely love working with people one on one. That's
Mhm.
my favorite thing to do. And then I'm
Mhm.
moving into group training, but one on one, because I don't think that there's a set way to do what people need to have done,
Yeah.
which is why I call myself a strategic advisor, because I like to use all of the tools
Yeah.
to help you reach the solution that you need for your life. And it's
Yeah.
not just about business, but I believe this is about our life.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So you all heard her, Monica Wisdom
Mhm.
HQ.com. And we will have all of these links in the show notes, including the link for Black Women Amplified podcast. We want to make sure that we lift up and amplify that podcast as well. And I just, once again, I really want to thank you for the conversation today. And I know that the audience will, my audience will appreciate it, will take it, and begin to really look at their stories
Yes,
and explore, what is it that I've inherited? What are the wounds that need to be healed? And, reach out to you if they are ready for that next
yes,
step in
for that next
healing.
step, because it just takes
It
one
just
step
takes
at
one
a
step.
time. We
Mm-hmm.
don't have to look at the whole overall picture.
Mm-hmm.
Just what is your next step? And
Yeah.
if your next step is to get support, reach out. I'm here to support you.
Absolutely. And here's what I want you all to do, listeners, today. You always love to give you a little bit of homework to do. Is I want you to share this episode with someone. Share this episode with a friend, a colleague, a family member, because this is the kind of conversation that we really need to get out there. And if you enjoy this conversation, I also invite you to leave a review on the podcast. If you're on Apple Podcasts, you're on Spotify Podcasts, wherever you are doing your podcast, leave a review and let us know how impactful this conversation was. Because when we share these conversations, that's how we transform. We create ripples that turn into tidal waves that transform people's lives. So share this episode and let people know how you found it or how you like it, by leaving a review, so the people who are finding us know that this is a worthwhile conversation to have. So as always, I thank my listeners, because without the listeners there is no podcast. And once again, go to monicawisdomhq.com and check out all that she has to offer. And once again, Monica, thank you so much for being on.
Thank you. I really appreciate this opportunity.
All right. You all have a wonderful rest of the day and a wonderful rest of the week, and we will see you on the next episode. Bye now.